Very good morning to all the viewers of the legal game. This is Kushagra Goyal, your educator for the CLAT examination. Now, one of the big controversy that is now brewing in Europe is the conflict at the Ukraine-Russia borders. So, in our segment of the General Knowledge Awareness series, today we are going to talk about the Ukraine-Russia conflict. We are going to discuss all the aspects of it, everything that involves within it, what is the history of it, and the follow up, how and what all facts do we need to note down in relation to this conflict. So, what is happening? There is a huge build up of Russian troops up to the size of almost 1 lakh soldiers at the border of Ukraine, which is adjacent to Russia. Now, at the highest escalation of conflict between India and China, we also still now have just 50,000 troops on the border. So, this has led to a huge speculation in the European circles and security circles that probably Russia is going to invade Ukraine in early January. That they are preparing for an invasion now to take away Ukraine totally. This is the speculation that is now building up in Europe. And US President Joe Biden has also stated that he will not take it lightly. He will send troops to Ukraine to protect the sovereign territory of Ukraine. Now, there is a lot of interrelated history between Ukraine and Russia. We will come to that. But what is the other thing that is happening? The intention in the month of June this year and later on, Vladimir Putin, who is the president of Russia, has spoken to the US President Joe Biden. They have been pushing for something that is a permanent confirmation that Ukraine will not join NATO, that Ukraine will not become a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They will not use Ukrainian territory for establishment of a NATO base or nuclear missiles of the Western allies, that is USA, United Kingdom and France. This is the speculation that is now going ripe, that Russia had demanded that you stop the Ukrainians' westward link because Ukraine is my domain of influence. It is similar to India being frustrated about Nepal shifting closer to China, right? Traditionally, the allies of India are Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan. These countries have traditionally been part of Indian sphere of influence. However, now there is a shift away from it. So, this has led to a lot of animosity between India and China. Something similar is with Ukraine. Ukraine has historically, until 2014, been an area of influence of Russia. And prior to the influence, Russia and Ukraine were part of one empire itself. जैसे कि India and Pakistan or India and Bangladesh were all together as part of the Indian subcontinent. And then we had a breakup of it, right? So इसी वजह से today in this segment we are going to talk about the history, the intermediate time, and what is the intention of Vladimir Putin. Very good morning to those who have tuned us live on this session. So what do we need to take a note of? हमें क्या क्या चीजें नोट करनी है? The ground situation. So first thing that we need to be aware of is the history of conflict between NATO and Russia. Okay, this historical controversy between NATO and Russia is part of the larger geopolitical conflict of the Cold War era. Cold War was a war that was a ideological war, that was a war for superiority, a war that did not happen on the battlefield but was happening everywhere else in the space and every other area. So Russia, which was erstwhile the USSR, okay, they had a historical conflict with North Atlantic Treaty Organization or the United States of America. So therefore, this is the history that we need to be aware of. Then we need to know the conflict zones of Ukraine. If I tell you the word Crimea or Donetsk or Luhansk, how many of you are aware of these areas? Very limited. So we will talk about these conflict zones. We will also, when we talk about the history, all undertake the Russian influence in Ukraine. And lastly, we will talk about the economic ties of Russia and European Union. Very good morning to you also, Asmita and Roshan, who have tuned to us live. So let's look at this map right now. This is the map of Europe and Russia today. This is how they look today. This is the border. Okay. This red line is the territory of Russia. Here, this area that you see here is what is known as Crimea. Can anyone tell me what water body is this? If I ask you what water body is this area, can any of you determine what is this water body? To the viewers who are tuned us live, what is this water body that we have here? This is Turkey for guidance. Turkey is also a NATO ally. Okay? This is Poland. Okay? And here we have Germany, France, UK. No one can tell me what is this? This water body is known as the Black Sea. The Black Sea. This is the water body that has historically been part of Russian influence. Okay. This is where Russian ships have usually been here. Okay. 2014, this conflict came to heads when Russia annexed this region from Ukraine and merged it with its own territory. This is the area of Crimea. That in 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. Okay. Even till today, this part, small territory, is of Russian influence. Okay, this is Russian territory here after a gap between the Baltic states. This area. Now, I will show you another map. This is the map of the USSR or the United Soviet Socialist Republics as it existed from the time period of 1917 to 1991. Okay. And in color, you see all the 15 countries that were part of the USSR. This USSR broke down in 1991. Okay, very good morning to you also, Jamal. So, in the previous map, we were only seeing part of this area. Okay? But right now on your screen is the entire map of USSR. Okay? In this map, we have countries. So, number one is Russia. This is the largest territory. These are countries as they exist right now as members of UNO. Okay? Now, Vladimir Putin was a spy when the USSR existed. Just like Ajit Doval, who is our national security advisor right now. So, he was also a spy during the USSR times. So he had seen the glorious size of USSR, which was the second largest and the second most powerful country of the world. On his watch, or when he was a part of the KGB, which is the security agency of USSR, he saw the fall of USSR into 15 different countries. Okay? I will now highlight those areas which this sixth number is Ukraine. Okay? Historically, all these countries were under the influence of Moscow. Okay, slowly, the countries here 2, 3, 4, and 5. What are these countries? Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus. Okay, all of them have slowly shifted towards the European Union. This is a big point of frustration for Vladimir Putin. He is like, no, this is unacceptable. These countries should always be part of the territory of USSR or of Russian influence. कि हम directly control नहीं कर सकते तो क्या हुआ, हम इसको दूसरे तरीके से influence करेंगे, जैसे कि you make them your the concept of client state. That these countries, even if the USSR is no more, should now be client states of Russia. This is the intention of Vladimir Putin. Okay? So remember, number 6, that is Ukraine, which was historically a part of USSR. This is the geopolitical scenario. Now I will tell you why the Russians believe that Ukraine. So these countries have now been part of the European Union. Some way or the other they have shifted towards EU. But Russia did not go to war for controlling these territories, but it is willing to go to war for Ukraine. Right? It is willing to go to war for this number 6 territory, which is Ukraine. Why is that so? The answer lies in the next slide. This is in 19th century the size of the Russian Empire, which was headed by the dynasty known as the Romanovs or the Romanovs, Russian Tsars. If you look at this map also, and you look at the area of influence of the Romanovs or the Romanovs, this number 6 area here, that is Ukraine, had always been part of the Russian Empire. So much so that Russians always believed that Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine, is part of a Russian territory. It's like stating Delhi has always been under any dynasty, been part of the Indian subcontinent. अगर हम आज ये कहें कि Delhi should become a part of some other country, it will be unacceptable. Similarly, stating United Provinces या Uttar Pradesh, any big empire of India has always had control of Uttar Pradesh territories. आज भी लोकसभा में whichever party has majority in Uttar Pradesh is also the party that is at the center or is the ruling party, right? So इसी वजह से in this picture also, here Ukraine is like the soft corner of Russians. Ukraine is like the soft corner of Russians. Therefore, every time there is a chance of Ukraine moving anywhere away from Russians, they get alerted. They are like, what is happening? Therefore, this is the root cause of what is happening now in European Union or in Europe, Russia or Ukraine, Russia border. This has alerted because throughout history, the Russian Empire has existed from 15th century. From 15th century when it became an imperial power till 1991 or even later till 2014, Ukraine had always been a area of influence of the Russians, or whosoever had been in Moscow had control over Ukraine. Okay, so now that Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia, he is like, how can this be the scenario that Ukraine, which has for 500 to 600 years been a part of my territory, could go anywhere else? Okay? Soft corner means that they have always held this position as their area of influence. Okay? जैसे कि anyone who has been in power in India has had influence on Uttar Pradesh or United Provinces or Central Indian territories, whatever you may call it. Whosoever has ruled at Delhi throughout Indian history, UP has always been part of that territory. Beginning from Chandragupta Maurya to Ashok to Gupta Empire to the Mughals to British to in Lok Sabha right now, whichever party has majority in Uttar Pradesh or has the most number of seats in Uttar Pradesh has always been the party in power in Delhi. So if you want to be in Delhi, you have to have control. And no Prime Minister of India or any ruler would accept a diminishing role in Uttar Pradesh. Similarly, the Russians never want Ukraine to go away from them. There is a geopolitical reason also for acquiring Ukraine. What is the reason? The reason is, look at this sea, the Black Sea. Ukraine has a huge border with the Black Sea. If you capture Ukraine or have control over majority of Ukraine, you control the Black Sea on two sides. And then you can dominate the Black Sea. If you dominate the Black Sea, you dominate the area of European territory in the Eastern Europe. This area is Eastern Europe. So through Black Sea, you can dominate this area. That is why Ukraine has always been a geopolitically strong point. Okay? Now, for those who are asking where all these notes will be available, with this we dive into the explainer. Now that I have given you the background story, we now go deeper into the facts. All the notes that you have of every YouTube session that I take is everything available on the Google Drive link. Now, before I move on and tell you the Google Drive link, I want to inform all of you that on Sunday at 5 p.m. Unacademy is conducting an Unacademy All India CLAT mock test. This will be a full syllabus mock test, and the student who achieves rank 1 will get an iPad mini. The purpose of this is that the moment the reward is so attractive, majority of the students who are preparing for CLAT will appear for it. So it is a good way to test yourself with your competition. Because your competition will be appearing in these mock tests, you will have a good chance of stating where you stand right now in the country. Okay, so make sure that you participate in the test and use the code KUSHGK to access this test for free. You can register or enroll yourself for this test right away. The link is in the description box. Okay, now to help you prepare for the mock test better, today I am conducting a free class to discuss the CLAT 2020 paper, which will give you a good guidance of the type of questions you will get in the mock test. If you are someone who has limited idea about CLAT, this is a good way to get yourself acquainted with the type of questions that are asked in the examination. The session will happen at 9:30 p.m. on Unacademy's Learners app. You can use the code KUSHGK to access this class for totally free of cost. The link is again in the description box. You can notify yourself about this class, hit the bell icon or state that notify me button whenever you click on the link, so that the moment the class happens, you will be notified about the class. Now, what is happening at the border? The situation, this is something we have already talked about, that Russia has acquired almost 1 lakh troops at the border. Okay, almost 1 lakh troops. But they believe there is no sense of imminent threat, or that Russia's Vladimir Putin has decided on an invasion. But Russian Foreign Minister, that is Sergei Rybakov, has warned that tensions in the current times are similar to the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the highest point where a nuclear war could have happened between USSR and USA. they were this close to a nuclear war. But the war was averted. The foreign minister of Russia believes the situation is similar to the Cuban Missile Crisis, that something similar is happening right now in Europe, that there could be a chance of a war. So thus, the Western intelligence, that is Five Eyes, USA, France, Russia, they believe that it will not happen right now, that is December 2021, but it will happen in early 2022. That January, February, when the winter subsides a little, that is when the invasion will actually happen. Russia is playing the ground rules right now. They are doing the preparation right now to test the waters of the conflict. Now, what is the historical context? Vladimir Putin, he's a autocrat, he's a dictator of the highest order. He believes that Soviet Union was the great power and he wants to retain or go back to those old days. It's similar to, for example, Erdogan, who had believed that Turkey will rise as the Ottoman Empire under him. But look at what he has done to the country right now. Okay? So he always sees Western democracies as adversaries. One of the reasons USSR broke down was because of the constant pressure Western democracies inflicted on USSR. Okay? So he is like, whenever a chance comes, I will always strike back. And as I had shown you in the map, he has never reconciled to the post-Soviet laws of Cold War era satellite states. Satellite state is similar to a client state. These two things are common. Satellite republic is equal to a client state. जैसे कि Pakistan is a client state of China today, right? Or Afghanistan is a client state of, was a client state of USA before the rise of Taliban there, right? So satellite state क्या होता है कि for all practical purposes, the country is under the control of the some other country. ठीक है? This is the scenario. Now, here in this historical context, he believes that, see, Ukraine was an area of influence of mine or of Soviet Union or of the Russian Empire earlier, so it has to always be retained on my watch. It's very similar to how Winston Churchill has stated about when he was asked, should India be given independence? He responded, at my watch the great empire will not crumble, or I will not watch the great empire crumble at my watch. So we got the declaration of independence only when Clement Attlee, the Labour Prime Minister or Labour Party Prime Minister, came in power. Under the Conservative Party, we may not have had the independence, it would have taken some more time. Alright? So, what is the other part of how Ukrainians are realized or seen by? So, Russians always view Ukraine as a stolen territory, and that it has a natural right over the territory. That from the Tsar's time and before, Ukraine has always been our territory. That Moscow has always ruled over Kiev and its surrounding territories. So, even so much that Ukrainians and Belarusians, they are habitually called little Russians by the Russian people. Okay, so just like I had given you the example of Uttar Pradesh or United Provinces or Central Provinces, जैसे all the rulers of India until the government or the independent of India, we have always had someone from Uttar Pradesh. So much so, there is only been a chance of 2 prime ministers of India who are not from Uttar Pradesh. All right, P.V. Narasimha Rao and Narendra Modi are the only 2 prime ministers in the history of India who are not from Uttar Pradesh. That is the sphere of influence. So, इसी तरीके से to the Ukraine is a similar example of Russians. They are like, this is our area of influence. Okay? They have indigenous narrative, they have a common history, a common faith, and they believe that all these areas are Eastern Slavic states. That during prehistorical times also, we were similar, or we were Slavic races. Just like we are Aryans and Dravidians, they believe they are Slavic humans. So they are together, or there is no natural difference between them. So Putin has repeatedly even stated Russians and Ukrainians are one people. Okay? Now I'm getting a question, does India have a client state? For some reasons we can claim that Maldives and Bhutan were our client states, but now even that is not true. India, honestly, as an independent country, India does not believe in having client states. We do not indulge in the politics of other countries. We try to maintain a sphere of influence by human to human connect. But we don't believe in dominating the politics. जैसे कि Pakistan influences politics in Bangladesh, or ISI tries to influence politics in Afghanistan. We never hear incidents, or have never heard in 75 years, Indian government trying to influence who should come to power in Pakistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka. ऐसा हम नहीं करते, right? We don't try to fund one political party or the other. That's not our intention. We do our politics, and our India as a country is a very distinct one. Right? That's the unique characteristic. इस तरीके से, इसी वजह से इस तरीके की बातें इंडिया के साथ नहीं होती है. Now, but the history of Ukrainians and Russians is not all good. सब कुछ अच्छा नहीं है. It's not all rosy, because in 19th century, until 19th century, the Romanovs had a imperial oppression, so much so that they have even banned the language of Ukraine. Why did Bangladesh break away from Pakistan? Because Western Pakistan had tried to dominate the East. उनकी language बंद कर दी थी. Bengali was banned. Bengali culture was looked down upon. So Ukrainian culture and language was banned by the Romanovs. So Ukrainian people believe humiliated by the Russians. In 1918, when the Russian Revolution, or what is known as the Bolshevik Revolution, that started, Ukraine had declared its independence, but this was swiftly snuffed out. There was an army that was sent in, and Ukraine's independence, or the movement for independence, was crushed. जैसे कि in 1857, when we had the revolt, different rulers in India had declared independence from the British, but then the British sent in armies to snuff out the independence struggle there, right? So therefore, this was a similar instance. In 1918, they declared independence, but the army was brought in. Then in retaliation, just like the British did to us in 1940s, a terror famine, or a man-made famine, was created, which is known as Holodomor, or Holodomor, as it is pronounced, okay, Holodomor. There is a phrase for the terror famine that Russians had done to kill almost 7 million ethnic Ukrainians. 7 लाख से ज़्यादा लोगों को मार दिया गया था through a famine. Okay, it is seen as a Soviet genocide. This was done by Stalin. Under his watch, this genocide was carried out because he looked down upon the Ukrainians. So not all has been rosy, and Ukrainians do not want to be really associated with the Russians. But what is Russia's concern? How does Russia see the scenario right now? So Putin views modern Ukraine's bid to be closer to the European Union and Nato as a betrayal. This is very similar to how France had looked down upon Algeria and England looked down upon Ireland. Okay? Even when India was getting closer to the Soviet Union and China in 1950s, 60s, 70s, Europe, UK and USA did not like it. because they thought कि India is a democracy, it should always be closer to a democratic country like Europe, United Kingdom or USA. We did not want to be closer to them because they were our colonial masters. We wanted to have a separate path from them. So similarly, this kind of attitude of looking at your former territory with a view of dominating them is very common in Europe. France had done it to Algeria, England did it to Ireland, it does it to Scotland and Wales also. This is how they always view कि कोई भी टेरिटरी हमने तब अक्वायर करी थी तो आज भी हमारी होनी चाहिए. जैसे चाइना ऑन तिब्बत, चाइना ऑन ताइवान, चाइना ऑन हांगकांग. व्हाई डू दे वांट टू डोमिनेट? क्योंकि 500 साल पहले हमारे राजा ने ये टेरिटरी अक्वायर करी थी तो अब ये हमारी होनी चाहिए, राइट? बिकॉज वी आर लीनिएज फ्रॉम दोज रूलर्स. इंडिया डज नॉट लुक एट इट दैट वे. We do our politics differently. All right. He also appears that Kiev's westward lurch, encouraged and exploited by the US and allies, poses a threat to Russia. That if Kiev becomes a part of European Union and NATO, they will place nuclear missiles in Ukraine and then they will try to curtail Russia or cow it down. That अपनी जगह पे रहो, इस तरीके से काम करो, ऐसे करो. They can encircle Russia totally. As we had looked at the map, if the entire, let's go back to the map, right? If Ukraine also becomes a member of EU, the encirclement of Russia will be almost complete in Europe. These are countries who are already part of it. Ukraine is the only gap between the area. ठीक है? Ukraine is the only gap that exists. Until now, यहाँ पे Turkey है. It is a NATO ally. This is the current border of European Union and NATO. So if Ukraine also becomes a part of European Union, this area will also become a EU influence. ठीक है? So this will be like the pearl of strings of Russia. जैसे कि China wants to encircle India by making client states in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka in the south and encircle us in totality. This is exactly what the European Union could do to Russia, is what Vladimir Putin believes. Okay? So, with this, what is the intention of Putin? Putin may be trying to push Kiev and West into a permanent settlement. There is the other thought process which believes that he may not actually be trying to take over Ukraine, but push Kiev and the Western countries into a permanent settlement, lifting of sanctions and a formal recognition of Crimea. He would also like US and UK to stop sale of arms and ammunition to Kiev and end the talk of Euro-Atlantic future. Now, what is all this? What is Crimea? We'll talk about it now. But before I do that, I want to take a time out to introduce myself to all of you. For those who do not know about me, I am Kushagra Goyal, a graduate of NLE Orissa, Masters in Economics. I've assisted students to achieve AIR 4, AIR 16 in CLAT. And I have assisted students to have almost 100 plus CLAT selections in 2021. And when I tell you or discuss a GK section or a GK question, I say it with some heft because I did a YouTube series that got 90% of the CLAT's GK questions right. Now, the notes that you have seen, all of this will be available on the link bit.ly/KUSHGK notes. All the classes that I take, everything is available on this link. Plus, if you have any doubt, if you can't find a file, if you have any doubt related to the videos, you can connect with me on my Telegram channel. That is Kushagra Goyal, the legal game _ Unacad. It is here you can connect with me. just like other viewers who have or members who are already part of the group, they have been able to get their doubts resolved. They even tell me, sir, this is something that we want to talk about, and I have taken up those topics with them. Alright, so this is a good way to interact with me on a daily basis. So do join in the Telegram channel if you have not done so. Now let's get back to 2014. What happened in 2014? In 2014, a revolution named a Revolution of Dignity happened. In Ukraine, a revolution of dignity was undertaken by the people who disposed their pro-Russian president. From 1991 to 2014, the president of Ukraine, that is Viktor Yanukovych, he had been a friendly one of the Russians. He had been a friendly person to the Russians and had always ensured that Ukraine remained a Russian power, or whatever Russia wanted to happen in Ukraine happened. So people obviously got fed up. They were like, what kind of humiliating aspect is this, that we have a president who is not a president of the Ukrainians but a president of the Russian. ये कैसा president है? हमारे लिए तो काम करता नहीं है, किसी और के लिए करता है. So the anger started simmering, बढ़ता गया, and by 2014 it reached its pinnacle with a revolution known as Revolution of Dignity. People ousted their pro-Russian revolution. Remember, this happened on February 21 of 2014. Okay? On February 21, people finally removed Viktor Yanukovych. He resigned. There was a declaration of new elections there, and finally the Ukrainian people breathed a sigh of relief. But on the same night, Vladimir Putin announced something. In a security review meeting in February, Putin decided to annex Crimea from Ukraine. He was like, the southern peninsular region had a majority of Russian-speaking people. So he's like, okay, right now my ships are in Crimea. And now that the president of Ukraine is no more a Russian person or a Russian appointee, my ships could be asked to be removed. So if I want to retain my control in the Black Sea, I want to keep control of the port of Crimea, which was the Sevastopol port. So on the same night, he took the decision that I will annex Crimea from Ukraine in a swift 2-week-long operation. So सबसे पहले क्या होता है? The moment protests are happening in the capital of Ukraine, these are against Russia. Crimea के अंदर protests start happening against Ukrainian people, or the revolution of dignity. People, now first it was thought the Ukrainian people of Crimea were protesting, but it was later revealed that soldiers in civilian dress were protesting against Ukraine. So Russia started infiltrating Crimea. Their soldiers started protesting in civilian dresses to look as if the people of Crimea are protesting. Okay, when these protesters demanded and they got hold of the capital city or the capital port of Crimea, which was the district capital, and they declared a demand for merger with Russia. So basically, Russian army went into Crimea, started protesting and declared that, see, our area will go to Russia. Your country can fall to a Ukrainian, but we believe that we are better off with the Russians, so we will go with Russia. This army, so these were actually soldiers, so they had arms and ammunition also, while it was not visible to the world because everything was developing very fast in Ukraine. So by the time this happened, a swift referendum was held wherein majority, it was declared, had the desire to merge with Russia. So Vladimir Putin used a referendum he conducted by his soldiers to declare, देखो, people of Crimea want their territory to be part of Russia. So how can I say no? I am a democratic leader. I will accept their demand. So it's similar to, let's say, Pakistan today conducts a referendum, infiltrates the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir with its soldiers, conducts a referendum by those people who declare that they will be part of Pakistan. Why did we not conduct the referendum after 1947? Precisely because of this. In 1947, Azad hote hi, Pakistan infiltrated the area of Jammu and Kashmir, वहां के लोगों को निकाल दिया और उसके बाद कहा कि अब यहाँ पे एक referendum कराते हैं. Obviously, when you know the voters are of your people, they will vote for you. This is why we have never accepted the demand of a referendum in Jammu and Kashmir, because of precisely this reason. So, but in Crimea, things were moving so fast, the world could not determine. They actually thought that people of Crimea were doing it. But then when Vladimir Putin swiftly accepted the demand, the world got alerted. But in a month, that is less than 30 days, on March 26, Russia formally signed an agreement with the leaders of Crimea to merge the territory with its borders. So within 25 days, Crimea was annexed by the Russians. Okay, so this is a daylight heist that Vladimir Putin pulled off. अब क्या होता है 2014 के बाद? The moment the annexation happened, US and European Union imposed trade sanctions on Russia. We have a grouping known as Group of 7 nations. Till then it was known as G8, but Russia was kicked out of it and the group became G7. Okay. Even till today, only a handful of states officially recognize Russian control over Crimea. But nobody like India, China, who are closer to Russia, they did not impose any sanctions. They were like, it's an internal affair of the population of Russia and Ukraine. It should be peacefully resolved. No fighting should happen. If it has been peacefully resolved, we have no problem. The Western countries impose trade sanctions. They are like people who have been to Crimea or people who are Russians will not be allowed to travel to European Union or to USA. But those trade sanctions did not move much because intrinsically European Union and NATO knew that they cannot go on war against Russia. The only way to prevent or get back Crimea would have been to go on war with Russia. Nobody wants to go on war with a nuclear state. Russia is a nuclear state. It has the second largest stockpile of nuclear weapons. So they know that nobody is going to come and fight with us. Alright? It is because of this Vladimir Putin is punching above its weight. Alright? He is confident. He knows that very recently, इस साल US has had a debacle in Afghanistan. The most powerful military, the self-declared most powerful military, could not defeat the Taliban in Afghanistan. Similarly, American soldiers have lost the war in Syria, Crimea, Georgia. So he is convinced that America could not do anything that can be detrimental to me. He is convinced that another adventure in Ukraine could ultimately yield positive dividends. That if I now go in Ukraine, I may actually get what I want. Till now, I have only been able to get little bit, but more sanctions have been imposed on me. But he now believes because US is frustrated, it has recently lost a war, it is trying to save its face, that there could be positive dividends for himself. What is the other reason he is so confident? So US, as Joe Biden has stated, only plans to punish Russia economically and in other ways if it attacks Ukraine, but there will be no overt military response. What are you more afraid of? Losing people or less growth? If you had to choose between your soldiers dying on a foreign territory and you trying to impose trade sanctions, Joe Biden will prefer the economic sanctions. He'll be like, why should I send my soldiers to Crimea to fight a war against the Russian? What have I gotten out of Crimea? So therefore, he knows that if Ukraine is also taken away, it's not going to bother the US that much. He believes NATO will not ride to the rescue and there will be no wider conflict. That even European countries, they are reeling under the war, they are reeling under COVID-19. So they will be very, very averse to a war with Russia. Obviously, Russia has 5,000 nuclear warheads. If Russia decides to launch all those missiles, the entire European Union could be dead in a day. So that kind of risk exists, right? A nuclear war can happen if, so they know, and Putin knows that, see, a nuclear war is out of the question. And if a nuclear war is not happening, they are not bringing their most powerful weapons, and he believes they will not bring in any weapons of any type, because Biden is in the business of ending wars and not starting them. It's his promise to American voters. How has Donald Trump and Joe Biden recently won elections? On the promise that they will end wars of America. The endless war cycle of America will be reined in, and more money will be supplied for infrastructure, healthcare, education. So Joe Biden has won on those promises. If he goes and fights a war, just like Barack Obama had initiated a war, but Barack Obama was not facing an election. He was out of office, but Joe Biden will run for elections in 2 years' time. And if there is large-scale damage, it could mean the end of his presidency. So nobody wants to put their seat in jeopardy. This is the intention, and Putin knows about it. Okay? He knows that the focus of USA is on China and COVID. That those are the two primary areas. अब इसके अंदर there is another area that is of importance for us. What is it? It is the province of Donbass. Another school of thought believes that Russia does not want to take away the entire territory of Ukraine. What they want is to merge Donetsk and Luhansk as two separate republics who are backed by rebels in Russia. Donbass is a region in Ukraine and has two provinces, Donetsk and Luhansk. These two are self-declared republics. Just like the NSCN, Nagaland Socialist Council of Nagas, or National Socialist Council of Nagaland, they have declared themselves to be independent. But usse hota kya? Until and unless you actually have recognition, your standing does not matter. I can also declare that today, from now onwards, my area will be known as the area of Republic of Kushagra Goyal. तो वैसा उससे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. Similarly, these areas, even if they have declared, but the key change happens is when these rebels are backed by Russians. So there is a school of thought which believes Russia is mobilizing these thousands of troops on the border, and Donbass is the area it wants to capture. Just like Crimea, Russia will do a swift operation and take away these territories. The moment the revolution of dignity happened in Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk, the separatists there had declared themselves as self-ruled republics. Okay, then what is Donbass region particularly? Donbass has two kinds of people. One are ethnic Ukrainians who make up the majority, and then there are ethnic Russians who are the largest minority. But 70% of the population, even if Ukrainian or Russian, speaks the language of Russian. So even if they are ethnic Ukrainian or ethnic Russians, all of them speak, majority of them speak Russian, 70%. So Moscow says post-Yanukovych regimes in Kiev are discriminatory to the Russian-speaking people in the East. That whosoever is speaking Russian in Ukraine, they are being looked down upon, they are being curbed, their freedom are being curbed, and they are being treated as secondary citizens, just like the Chinese are treating the Uyghur Muslims. So Russians believe, or Moscow states, that Kiev or Ukraine is treating Russian speaking people with discrimination. So we want to help those people. Now, after Crimea was taken away, a protocol was signed between Ukraine and Russia. What was this protocol? This protocol was known as Minsk Second Protocol. This was for a limitation of aid into Ukraine. That how much can you assist Ukraine to ensure that Ukraine remains a area of Russian influence. However, उसके बाद US has committed almost 2.5 billion in military assistance to Ukraine. Okay, what gives you sense of security against a nuclear state? Weapons. Alright, India is confident against Pakistan and China today. It knows that it can fight a war now because it has nuclear weapons. In 1965 and 1947, when we had two wars and one with China in 1962, we were not so confident because in normal warfare there is a chance of risk involved. But when you have nuclear weapons, you know that you can do equal amount of damage on the enemy. So this confidence of Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine will dwindle if Ukraine starts getting military assistance from NATO and especially USA. So Putin has demanded a commitment from US that Ukraine will not be taken into NATO fold, that Ukraine will never be part of North Atlantic Treaty Organization. US has categorically stated, why will we give you such assurance? It's like we going to China and telling them that you declare that Pakistan, Afghanistan will never be area of your influence. China will never do. Similarly, if China comes and asks India that you declare that you will never influence anything in Bhutan, Nepal or Myanmar, will we do it? No, we will not. So this is what adversaries do. Why will we give something that our adversary wants directly? We won't. So as the stalemate continues, the population of Donbass, which is of 4 lakh people or 4 million, has been caught in the middle of the most dangerous great power rivalry since the end of Cold War. So this is the risk that now exists. So what all have we discussed till now? The historical ties of Ukraine and Russia. Then what happened, the revolution of dignity. Uske baad, what is the current intentions of Russia? What is the Donbass region? The last aspect of it is what is NATO. NATO is an intergovernmental military alliance. A military alliance is that an attack on one is an attack on all. एक को मारोगे तो सबसे लड़ना पड़ेगा. वो वाली जो हिंदी की कहावत है, a military alliance is exactly that. It came into being based on the North Atlantic Treaty which was signed in Washington. ठीक है? On 4th April 1949. But the precursor to NATO was a military alliance of the Western European Military Alliance. Where was it signed? Treaty of Brussels in 1948. That document is seen as the founding document of NATO. Okay, the headquarters of NATO is in Belgium, that is Brussels. And basically NATO is like a close-knit alliance. What are the terms used? A collective security defense alliance. That not only just we share militaries together, or an attack on one military is an attack on the all. It is also security arrangements. You tell each other how you are preparing, what you will be doing. So there is a large scale. Instead of fighting one, you are fighting all of them, which is a deterrent for someone to attack you. Okay. China would never imagine to fight against USA until and unless it has a similar alliance of its own. So those kinds of structures countries create. Okay, now I know that a lot of you want to know a lot more about NATO. So for that, on October 14 only I had taken a special class about it. आप इस class को देख सकते हो on the link of Unacademy. This link, you can press on this link to find out about this entire structure of NATO. So I had done a special class which is a fact sheet of NATO. What is North Atlantic Treaty Organization? This class is available on Unacademy's Learners app. The link is here. Okay, so if you want a detailed understanding of what NATO is, instead of me repeating the same thing, all you can do is just watch this. Okay, it's a 1 hour class to cover everything about NATO plus other things. Okay, so with that we will conclude the session. And once again I want to remind all the viewers that today at 9:30 p.m. I will be taking the discussion of the CLAT 2020 paper on the Learners app. You can use the code KUSHGK to access this class for totally free of cost. Okay, this is essential for you to know more about the preparation of the examination, the kind of questions that are asked, especially for students who have limited idea. Now, what are Unacademy special classes? Special classes of Unacademy are unique in the sense that you can verbally ask your questions. You don't have to just type them out and wait for me to read. You can verbally raise your hand, ask a question just like a normal class. Plus, you can get notified about these classes immediately. And the moment the class gets over, you can download the lecture notes, see them, take down your notes. Plus, as I told you, you can watch these classes n number of times wherever, on whatever device you want to. And as the examination gets closer, it's a good reminder that the Unacademy All India CLAT mock test is happening on December 19 at 5 p.m. Rank 1 student will get iPad mini for the test. Rank 2 will get an Amazon voucher worth 10,000 rupees. Rank 3 will get an Amazon voucher worth rupees 5,000. And rank 4 to 10 will get Amazon vouchers worth rupees 500. So make sure that you use this opportunity to not just prepare yourself, see how you stand against all India competition, but also for amazing rewards that come along with it. Incentivizing your preparation is always one of the good ways to keep a healthy competition involved. Mock tests may seem immaterial to a lot of students, but when they come with rewards, it also increases the chance of you to stimulate your energies towards them. Okay, so make sure you don't miss out on December 19 at 5 p.m. Use the invite code KUSHGK to enroll for this test right away. On that note, the notes of this class will be available on the link bit.ly/KUSHGK notes. Plus, if you have any doubts about anything, you can visit my Telegram channel, join it at Kushagra Goyal the legal game _Unacad. All the links, all the data will be available there. So, and if you have any doubts, you can ask them on the Telegram channel. I will be available there at your service. Now, if you are also looking for other tests, Unacademy has started a Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday educator curated test. That is, we create the test for you and you can get feedback from the educators at 6:30 p.m. Plus today, there is a marathon GK classes that are happening on Unacademy's platform to prepare yourself for the exam. And if you want to know about special NLUs, specifically Lucknow and Patiala, you can tune into this lecture on 18th. Lastly, if you are looking for a dedicated batch, you're like, sir, मैं अपने आप से पूरा syllabus नहीं कर सकता. I need a batch in which there is a specific timeline जितने में syllabus complete होगा. You then need to subscribe to Unacademy's Plus courses. Take our subscription for 6 months as the exam is that much away. Use my code KUSHGK for an additional 10% discount. The batch for 2023 aspirants is beginning on December 17 and the batch for 2022 aspirants is on December 15. So on that note, thank you so much all of you. Take care. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have a friend who also needs to know about the Ukraine-Russian conflict, share the video with them. Let me know if you have any clarifications to be needed in the comment section of the video, and press the bell icon if you want to subscribe and not miss any updates from us in the future. Till then, see you all. Take care and do get your loved ones vaccinated if they are eligible. Please, the new variant is in, so it is very, very essential. On that note, take care. See you all.